Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have the Grudens back in the building for another edition of the Taking the Points pod. Coach Jay, long time no see, man. How's life been?
Everything is great. Went to the Stetson Hatters game as they clinched the Atlantic Sun. Watched my son advance to the NCAA tournament.
First time ever for
Nice.
Stetson, right?
Yeah. Big deal.
How,
Big deal. I actually
far they go?
stormed the court. Me and JJ stormed the court. All those haters out there saying it's dangerous to storm the court, we made it out alive.
JJ, good to see you, man. How's it going?
Good to see you. It's going well, man. Same thing, man. Stetson Hatters all the way. We're dancing.
I was going to ask how far you think they're going. Are they getting out of the first round, you guys think?
I think they're
We're
gonna
not
get
worried
15.
about that, Grant. We're not worried about that right now. One
think
step
they're
at
gonna
a
get
time,
15.
one day at a time.
All right, we'll get there. Max has joined us as always. Max had a busy day. He was live for his 220,000 plus audience today. Max, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Like you said, busy day. It's been a lot of fun. Honestly, I was texting a couple of my roommates. The busiest day since the NFL season, but honestly, probably the most fun since the NFL season too. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, there were some expected big moves, some crazy moves that we didn't expect, and that's why we wanted to bring the whole panel back. We'll start with Russell Wilson to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Coach Jay, we'll start with you first. Your favorite song you were teasing me about all year, Renegade. He tweeted the video as soon as he signed. $1.2 million for Russell Wilson. The Broncos are paying his salary all year. It's a very low risk, high reward move for the Steelers that I think should pay off in the long run because I don't think Russell Wilson's going to Pittsburgh without starting. Coach Jay.
Well, low risk, high reward for who?
For the Steelers, they're only paying him $1.2 million.
You're risking the development of a couple of players that played pretty good for you last year. Kenny Pickett actually, when they made the change at coordinator, had a couple of good games. He played pretty good, and he's a young player developing. And then Mason came in and played some pretty good football at the end to get him into the playoffs. So that's going to hurt their development, obviously. We're going to give the keys to Russell Wilson for a year and see what happens, and we're going to risk losing Kenny Pickett or Rudolph. I'm not convinced with this play right here. I'm not a big Russell Wilson fan. I know the Pittsburgh Steelers need a quarterback, but a one-year deal for a guy this age, and you're going to stop Kenny Pickett's development. I just not a fan of the move personally.
So you then still think Kenny Pickett has something left in the tank?
He's got as much left as Russell Wilson now. Russell Wilson got let go by Seattle. He got let go by Denver. He had one of the greatest quarterback coaches in the NFL history with Sean Payton. That didn't work out for a reason. Now we're not talking about a guy that tried to sabotage Russell Wilson. We're talking about a guy who had Drew Brees throw for 500,000 yards for guys, 50,000 yards, whatever it is. So the system was in place. They had weapons at Denver. It didn't work out for whatever reason. Didn't work out at Seattle. He had some great games as a pro. There's no doubt about Russell Wilson is a fine quarterback and has had a great career. I just don't like the move for a 37, 38-year-old guy when you're taking over for a couple of young quarterbacks that are in a developmental process. I think if you keep letting them develop and get better, they have more of a chance to get you where you want to go than a 38-year-old guy who's been tossed away twice.
JJ, I haven't talked to you since the Russell Wilson trade. It's an interesting spin on it. Are you a Kenny Pickett believer? I know we talked obviously all last year. Do you think Kenny Pickett is going to be a good quarterback?
No, I always faded him last year. I don't know if you remember that, but I faded Kenny Pickett every single time he played, really. And then Mason Rudolph came in and he did really well. He played really well towards the end of the year. He was moving the ball with Pittsburgh. They were looking like a good team. They made the playoffs. I mean, Mason Rudolph was trending in the right direction, but making a move like Russell Wilson, I thought for sure the or do something like that. So
yeah, I it's an interesting take, Jay. I get what you're saying. He's old, right? It's a low it's just the move in general. If you didn't want him to go to Pittsburgh, I know you said you're not a Russ fan at all, but if not Pittsburgh, where did you want to see him end up?
It's not that I'm not a Russ fan. I think Russ is a good NFL. I phrased that wrong. I just think for a one-year deal when you're taking over for a couple quarterbacks that got you to the playoffs, that have a little bit of an upside. What's Russell Wilson's upside? To get you where next year?
Right.
Maybe to the first round, get you 9-8, 10-7, maybe. You're not going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. You're not going to overtake that conference, beat Joe Burrow. I don't know where they're trying to go. Their best chance to try to develop the quarterbacks they have, get people and surround them with some better, more physical wideouts, continue to upgrade their defense, and go from there. But it is a low risk for Pittsburgh because they're only paying them $1 million. I get that. But I don't know. It's just a weird deal for me.
Be interesting to see what they do with Kenny Pickett because, again, I just don't think they were going to sign Russ and have him, not start. So
Kenny struggled. I get it. And Mason is probably not the guy they want, but, is Russ the guy? That's the big question, and we'll find out.
No doubt.
Russell Wilson and bring in a rookie quarterback, learn under him for a year, or
just going to get rid of Kenny Pickett, just bag on him after a year.
I think it's time to move on. It's time to move on. From
yeah, you should move on. Max, thoughts on Kenny Pickett? You think they should keep him?
I think it's too early to just move on. I think like the rush of a development of the quarterback has been it's kind of on like a fast track nowadays, especially considering like Kenny Pickett, he missed half of the games his rookie year. Last year he didn't play a bunch, and obviously there was coordinator issues. And I think Arthur Smith coming in this year is going to vastly help that offense, regardless of who's playing quarterback. So I don't think he's necessarily got the short end of the stick because the play has been bad at times, and it's clear to see that. But basing what we feel about Kenny Pickett off of a sample size that amounts to one season between two is not fair to him. And honestly, that's what the Steelers may see. They may see Russ coming in as a bridge guy. Maybe they want Kenny Pickett to learn from him. And again, who knows? Maybe this is a quarterback battle because at the end of the day, you're not paying somebody $40 million a year to go be your quarterback. And if you don't start him week one, the media looks at you like, what are you doing? You're paying this guy $1 million to come in and probably start, but who knows? Maybe it's to light a fire underneath Kenny Pickett too. It's not necessarily starting week one. You're bringing Russell Wilson in to probably be the best quarterback on this roster. And at the end of the day, what the Steelers want to do is just win games. Whoever gives them the best chance to win games is going to be their guy. But I don't think it's horrible for Kenny Pickett that this is happening, especially because, like I said, the sample size we've seen from Kenny Pickett, it's 2 years, yes, but it amounts to one season of games.
I'm stuck on the fact that you just said Arthur Smith's going to come in and vastly change that offense. I just can't see that happening. I mean, with Ryan Tannehill, what he did with Tennessee, he wasn't really throwing the ball much. And then look at what he did with the Falcons. I mean, there wasn't really a plethora of offensive plays there either. I mean, I just don't see him coming in and making a big change.
As a coordinator, Smith was really, really good. I think he was in over his heels a little
Derrick
bit.
Henry.
Yes, that is true too. And it's different offense. There is a lot of talent in Pittsburgh on the outside too. So it's a different offense, granted, and maybe he can get more out of the quarterbacks than Matt Canada has in the past. But I think that Arthur Smith as a coordinator objectively has done a good job. Like he led multiple top 10 offenses in back-to-back years. Yes, he had Derrick Henry, but he also had Ryan Tannehill playing quarterback. He didn't have a lot of weapons on the outside. He maximizes personnel. At least he did in Tennessee. And I think Atlanta is honestly a different story. I think that was a very, very different animal, especially 2 years ago when the Falcons' talent was really all over the place. So I do think he's going to step in and improve on what the Steelers had offensively. Again, very low bar to improve from, but I do think he can step in and help them improve as an offense.
Let's stay on Atlanta because our boy Kirko got a bag today. 4 years, $180 million to go play in Atlanta. Look, I said it on Twitter. I said it in a video. Jay, I'm going to get your thoughts here, Coach Jay. I think him going to Atlanta, look, that division, as we know, the NFC South last year was the worst division of football. Baker Mayfield won it. He re-signed 3 years, $100 million. I think Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta, they're going to win that division. I don't think it's going to be tough for Atlanta to win. They were a quarterback away last year. They have the running back. They have the tight end. They have Drake London. They have some receivers. They have a solid offensive line, and they have a decent defense. So how excited are you, Coach Jay, to see Kirk Cousins go to Atlanta for 4 years and quite frankly, a big contract in $180 million?
It's an important signee for Atlanta because Raheem Morris is a defensive head coach. I hired Zach Robinson as an offensive coordinator. It'll be his first time calling plays. I know Kenny Zampese's there as an offensive consultant. I know he's there. They have a young staff. And to add a veteran quarterback to go along with a young tight end, a young running back, a young receiver in Drake London is critical for that football team. And I think it's a great move for Atlanta. They now have the best quarterback in that division, and they're instant contenders to win that division as well, adding Kirk Cousins. His experience is going to help a lot. He's going to help the offensive coordinator a lot. Kirk's got to get in there early, probably starting as soon as he can. As soon as he's legally allowed to get in there, he needs to get in there and help with the playbook, get his top 25 dropbacks he likes, his top play actions he likes, his quick game that he likes, his bootlegs that he likes, gets them installed in the playbook and go from there. But I think it's a great signing, and Kirk will do well there.
Would you say that they should be the betting favorite today to win the NFC South after that signing?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. And, they got to do some things on defense a little bit to get more pass rush, I think. But for the most part, when you have a guy like Kirk, the veteran leadership that he has, his experience to go along with the explosiveness of Drake London, Kyler Pitts, and a running back that can really make a big difference in Bijan, for sure. They have the weapons that'll help Kirk out. Kirk's not a guy you want to throw the ball 45, 50 times a game. We don't need to get crazy. We need to get Bijan involved. And then the play actions of what Kirk thrives at. And that'll help out a ton for the Atlanta Falcons. The play action shot plays Kirk is exceptional at, and the bootlegs, he's one of the best that's ever done it as far as getting outside the pocket and letting it rip.
JJ, how many games do the Atlanta Falcons win this year? I know we just said they're division favorites, but if you had to put a number on it today, March 11th, how many games do they win this year? Or over under
10.
if you want to go over under. 10?
I'll go over. They'll set the line at 9.5. I think. I don't think they go over 9.5 though. I think they get 10.
Yeah, I would take
10.
that as well. I mean, they should beat the Panthers twice. The Saints, I don't love them. And then the Bucks. I mean, Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Yeah,
you have to
I'll take
understand
that.
they have a rookie play caller. Now, I know Zach Robinson's a good guy. Is at the Rams, but he never called a play before. That's a big deal for a young guy coming in here. Now you have everything. You got to call third downs, red zone, short yardage, all these things. You got to pick up the blitzes, all that. Man, it's a difficult job. But adding Kirk Cousins will help a lot. But Kirk's not a guy that really wants to have a ton of input in play calling, but he'll have a great knowledge of what he likes and what he's comfortable with, and that'll help out Zach a lot.
Yeah, he has a ton, like you said, a ton of talent to deal with in a first year. What about you, Max? How many wins do you see the Falcons getting next year? JJ says 9.5, the line set. You going over? I would go over as well.
I would go over. 10 was the number that first came to mind for me too. I do worry about them defensively a little bit, just because like we talked about it last offseason. What they needed was a pass rush. They didn't get after the quarterbacks. I believe they were dead last in the NFL in sacks. They were definitely bottom 3, but didn't get after the quarterback. And I thought last year, especially defensively, they overperformed, like especially considering what their personnel was, who they had on their roster. They overperformed defensively. That was part of the reason they were competing for that division. Granted, it was the worst division in the NFL, but that was part of the reason they were competing, because their offense overperformed, kind of made up for the bad quarterback play. Raheem Morris coming in is probably going to be the boost that they need defensively, but I'm kind of in the boat where I'll believe it when I see it, at least defensively. But I think offensively, this is going to be probably one of the definitely a top 10, maybe even top 7, top 6 units in the NFL. Playmakers on the outside, really good run game. And I think the fusion of what Kirk Cousins is good at in the pass game with some of the stuff that can come over from LA, from that McVay system, is going to be a beautiful thing in that offense, especially considering that offensive line. They could do some serious damage, especially in that division.
We got to stick with quarterbacks. JJ, I'm coming to you here first. What the hell are the Raiders doing, man? Gardner Minshew, 2 years, $25 million. Look, I'm not a Gardner Minshew hater. What he did with that Colts team last year was pretty impressive to take them, as far as he did. But as far as the Raiders go, you struck out on Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, you're not getting him. Justin Fields is still out there, but if you give Gardner Minshew $25 million, you're probably not going to go trade a third or a fourth or whatever Justin Fields is going to cost. So it looks like the Raiders are probably going to draft the quarterback and let Gardner Minshew play for a year. But I'm not a fan of Gardner Minshew in Vegas, especially after losing Josh Jacobs. I know they went outside Christian Wilkins to a huge deal today, so they splashed in the defensive tackle market, JJ. But quarterback-wise, to keep Devontae Adams happy, you're telling me you're going to settle with Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, no, I think they're gonna draft a quarterback in the first round. I think they got to. They're gonna compete with whoever they draft is gonna compete with Gardner Minshew and take over that starting role. And Gardner Minshew did win some games for Indianapolis. They were in the playoff hunt late in the season. They almost did make the playoffs. I mean, he's not a bad quarterback. I mean, he's a veteran guy. He can sling the rock if he needs to. He makes some careless decisions here and there, but overall he did a really good job last year for the Colts. I think he exceeded expectations in a way. So bringing a guy like that who's been around, he's seen a bunch of different offenses ran, I think it's a good spot for him to be at. I'm just curious to see what's going to happen in the draft room for the Raiders. So whoever they get, it's going to be a competition at the end of the day.
What pick do the Raiders have? Does anybody know? 13, 11, 12?
It's outside the top. It's outside the top 10. Just that's for sure. But
yeah, so if that's their pick in the first round, I mean, who are you going to draft at that point? I mean, like, you love Jane Daniels. He's probably going to be gone unless they trade up. Drake May, Caleb Williams. So are they going to get a J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix? I mean,
I honestly think J.J. McCarthy's going to be gone too. I think 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10.
Wow.
So you're probably going to be looking at maybe a Michael Penix possibly. And maybe you can even wait a little bit longer for a Bo Nix or or even I like the guy from Tulane, Mike Pratt. So there's a few guys that you can kind of look at and bring in. So we'll just have to see.
What do you?
They better get a running back for God's sakes. Zamir White's their only guy they got. Abdullah. They better get a running back. Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, they have to hand the ball off 35 times a game to be successful. I love Gardner. I coached Gardner at Jacksonville. He's a tough guy. He's a great competitor, but he has to have a strong running game to go with it. And right now they have nobody at running back. So they got issues. They have to fill a lot of spots there at Vegas, to help Gardner out, or Aiden O'Connell. I don't know if it's going to be a competition or not, because Aiden did some good things last year. Mm-hmm. I was impressed with the way he played. He's a great competitor. He's a big, tall kid. He can sling it quite a bit. Minshew can get outside the pocket. He can scramble, make some off-schedule plays. I get it, but I think that'll be a little bit of a competition. I don't think they'll draft one until late to go along with them, but they got to draft a running back, another offensive lineman, tight end. They need tight end bad. So, yeah, they got some issues.
Yeah, here it is, the comment right here. What the WTF Jacobs to Green Bay? What did you think of that, Coach? What was your initial reaction seeing Josh Jacobs on a 4-year, $48 million deal to go to the Packers?
I think it's great for Green Bay. I really do. I think it's a great move. And Aaron Jones is getting up there in age, and A.J. Dillon will probably be gone. But to add Jacobs to go with Jordan Love, the play-action game that LaFleur likes to do, I think it's a great move. I really do. I think the Green Bay Packers have solidified them as the favorites in that conference, even over Detroit right now with Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a dynamic back. He's a powerful guy. He can get outside the backfield in space. He can hurt you in the passing game. It's a great move. He's a combination of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones all into one player. He can do what Aaron Jones can do in the passing game, and he can do what A.J. Dillon can do in the running game. It's a great addition for Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It was a shocking addition as well, because we heard nothing about Josh Jacobs going to Green Bay, and then out of nowhere it popped up, and here he is. We were talking running backs all last week, Max. Now, with the Packers moving on from Aaron Jones, I got to get a landing spot or two from you on where he could play football next year, now that we know for sure that it will not be in Green Bay.
Dallas, for sure. That is his hometown team. They're going to need a running back now, assuming they don't get Derrick Henry. That, to me, is clear. They would want to get Aaron Jones. And I think Aaron Jones would want to go there, too.
Interesting. So you officially out on them not getting Derrick Henry? You think there's no way?
No. I think it is going to be one of the two. I know we talked last week. We said Derrick Henry. It's either Baltimore or Dallas. At least that was my thought. And Baltimore actually just lost Gus Edwards about a couple hours ago, so they're very much in need of a running back, more so than they were before. But the Derrick Henry to Dallas rumors seem strong. But if Derrick Henry does not go to Dallas, that is a team that Aaron Jones. He said it himself, he loves to go play in Dallas. It's his hometown. Every single time he plays the Cowboys, he rips them apart. They know how good he is over there. So I would not be shocked if Aaron Jones wound up in the silver and blue, because they need a running back bad now with Pollard gone, and they need to help Dak out in the run game as well.
JJ, you buying Coach's take that the Packers are now the favorites with Josh Jacobs over the Lions?
Yeah. I think the Lions are going to fall off just a little bit, but it's going to be a close one. It's going to be a tough one. I think Minnesota, they're just going to be throwing it in this year. I don't think they're going to be really, in the mix. The Bears, on the other hand, man, they look strong defensively. I know they added some components on defense too. They got DeAndre Swift too. I'm really curious to see who steps into the starting quarterback role, if it's Caleb Williams or if they keep Justin Fields or whoever that may be. I'm curious to see what happens there, because the Bears could be a little sneaky too. I think it's going to be a really, really tight race. I think it's going to be the best, most competitive division in the NFL next season. So I'm not totally sold on making Green Bay the clear-cut favorite, but when those lines come out, man, I have a feeling it's going to be like a plus 120 maybe towards Green Bay, plus 145 to Detroit, and then just like a plus 190 to Chicago, maybe a little over the 200 mark, but it's going to be a close one. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the quarterback, whatever's going to happen in Chicago is definitely interesting. You mentioned Chicago. I saw the jersey swaps today, Max. T. Higgins requested a trade. Yeah. And it sounds like you're pushing the narrative to get T. Higgins over to Chicago to catch passes from whoever's the quarterback. Is that where you think ultimately T. Higgins ends up, is Chicago, now that he's requested a trade out of Cincy?
Honestly, no. I think he's going to wind up in Kansas City. I think the Chiefs are ready to move on from L'Jarius Sneed. They've obviously allowed him to seek a trade. Whether or not they get that deal done is the question. But if they get that deal done, they are off the hook for a lot of money. So if they want to go get a true number one receiver for Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce's getting up there in age, this is the time to do it. Unless they love somebody in the draft and they feel like they can get him wherever they're picking at 32 or trade up and get him. This is probably the best chance they're going to get for a number one wide receiver. I do think Chicago is a real thing. Honestly, with all the money the Giants have now, I would not be surprised if the Giants made a push for him. But those are my top three for sure.
Jay, were you surprised when T. Higgins requested a trade? Look, I guess my question to you is, number one, were you surprised, Coach? And number two, how different will the Bengals offense look without T. Higgins? Because, I mean, if you take away Jamar Chase, who are they going to throw the ball to?
Well, request and granted are two different words, right? You can request all you want to. It doesn't mean Mike Brown's going to let him out of the building. There's a lot of teams that could use T. Higgins. I'm with. I think the Giants is a perfect fit. They need a wideout. They just lost Saquon Barkley, and the Giants gotta get a wideout to help their quarterback situation out a lot. But if they lose T. Higgins, I still think they'll be okay. They still have Boyd, and they still got Jamar Chase. I think Joe Burrow is still function okay.
Yeah,
he's one of the best quarterbacks out there in the NFL right now. I think they'll be okay without him. So moving forward, they'll add another guy in a draft in the third or fourth or fifth round. The Bengals will. They'll miss him, but they'll be okay.
Another wide receiver about the wide receivers in this draft. It's a stacked class this year.
It is
at the wide receiver position. I think
I always say that. I always say that, JJ. There's only about
this year's different.
Emerge.
This year's different. This year is a lot different. There's some talent coming out at the wide receiver position this year. I think this is the big. I wasn't really sold on the receivers the last couple of years, but this one is stacked with a bunch of good players.
All right, JJ, who's your favorite mid-round talent at wide receiver this year in the class?
Florida. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, big kid. Yeah, yep.
Ursel.
Yep. I like him a lot. But I could see him going the second, maybe third round. The one kid, the Yak Monster from Western Kentucky. I don't know if you've seen him. He's a big kid that can run a lot too. Yards after catch, you piled him on. They call him Yak King over at Western Kentucky. I like him quite a bit. And there's a few other guys out there. I think Odunze is going to go a little early. I do like Odunze a lot. I know the other wideout too for Washington is coming out too, who's pretty good. I'm not really sold on Corey Coleman from FSU. I think he's a little stiff, but we'll see. But I mean, other than that, I mean, there's some other talent that's coming out there. There's going to be a lot of gems that I don't even know about right now that I'm sure will be out there. So it's going to be a good draft for sure.
Did you say Corey Coleman?
Not Corey Coleman, but Brandon. Is it Corey Coleman from FSU? Yeah.
Keon Coleman. You said Corey Coleman. I had Vietnam flashbacks when the Browns had Corey Coleman. It was a nightmare.
Corey Coleman. He was from Rutgers, right? The Rutgers receiver. Or was that Brandon Coleman? There's a couple. Colemans.
No, he wasn't from Rutgers. Corey Coleman was from, I forget where he was from, but I know.
Corey Coleman from Baylor.
Baylor.
Yeah.
That's right. Coach said another receiver move that involves my Cleveland Browns that I haven't had the chance to speak to you about is Jerry Jeudy for a 5th and a 6th. Look, I thought it was a great trade because, the Browns historically are not good at drafting wide receivers. In the past several years, they haven't been able to do so. And look, I know JJ just said that the wide receiver class this year is loaded, but for a 5th and a 6th round pick, even if it is just to have him here on his last year of his rookie deal, I don't think you're getting a Jerry Jeudy talent at that level in the draft. And I think he'll be a decent wide receiver too in Cleveland behind Amari Cooper this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good ad for Cleveland. Really do. Jerry, he can do a lot of different things. He can work in the slot. He can work outside. Called him a dead leg king. He can really set up routes. He can get in and out of his breaks. He's a good option route runner. I think it's a good move to go along with Amari Cooper, who can get outside, line up outside, and work the corners. Jerry Jeudy can work more inside and work the nickels. So it's a good ad for Cleveland.
Mac Jones, let's switch gears to another quarterback. Mac Jones signed traded to the Jaguars. JJ, what was your initial reaction when you saw that? I think that was one of the more funny trades I've seen in a long time. It was time. I mean, we just talked about other, spots and players being time to move on. I think Mac Jones in New England has been past due, but look, Trevor Lawrence down the stretch last year struggled a little bit. I don't think they're anywhere near ready to, they're not moving on from Trevor Lawrence, but what do you make of the move of Mac Jones going to back up Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville?
Who was the backup for Trevor Lawrence? It wasn't Beathard, was it? He was at
CJ Beathard. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a free agent or what. I mean, I don't know if they had to move on from him with the contract situation. I don't know if he's still with the team, but you gotta have a backup, right? So Mac Jones started in the league. I mean, it's a good backup spot for him. So, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is still their guy. I don't really see Mac Jones getting in anytime soon, but it's good to have a first rounder on your team backing up another first overall pick. So I don't mind the move. It's a little weird, but
Jay, you think Mac Jones could have success somewhere else? If maybe Jacksonville, maybe not somewhere else in his career, or do you think he's going to be for the rest of his career a backup or an afterthought?
Well, he's going to have to earn it. There's been guys who have struggled their first couple of years as a starter and then gone somewhere else as a backup and then got another opportunity and made the most of it. And that's what he's going to have to do. Whether he plays or not is yet to be seen, but it's good to learn from Doug Peterson. They'll have a good system in place. They have some good receivers there. They just added Gabe Davis. Will probably lose Ridley, but they got Christian Kirk and they got some weapons out there in Ingram. So it's an interesting deal, but it's good to have a quality backup because Trevor has had some injury history in his past. He's got the back, he's got the knee, he's got some issues going on here, and he struggled a little bit last year. So I expect Trevor to be at full strength, and Mac Jones hopefully won't have to play a whole lot, but if he does, it'll be a great opportunity for him and a chance to revitalize his career.
Yeah, look, with the Jags wide receiver room, Max, I'll come to you. They're obviously definitely going to lose Calvin Ridley. I mean, sounds like he's not coming back. And was signing Gabe Davis to 3 years, $50 million. I love. Go ahead, Coach.
Can't believe that.
Yeah,
Can't believe. Yeah, 3 years, $50 million for Gabe Davis. That's why I'm questioning what they're trying to do with that wide receiver room because is Gabe Davis even an upgrade over Calvin Ridley? Is it lateral? Is it going backwards? I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand. I love Evan Ingram. I think he's a solid talent down there for Trevor Lawrence. But as far as Evan Ingram goes in that contract, it's a head scratcher to me, Max. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the only way it's an upgrade is financially because they would have had to pay Calvin Ridley more. That's the reality of the situation there. I would take Calvin Ridley over Gabe Davis 10 out of 10 times if it's pure talent money aside. I think, first of all, let me say this. From what I understand and what I've been seeing, re-signing Calvin Ridley as well as signing Gabe Davis is not off the table. Like, it sounds like they are very much can still sign Calvin Ridley financially, very much make it work. Do they? I don't think so. I think Calvin Ridley is going to ask for a lot of money, and there are a couple teams that could use a true number one wide receiver. Patriots, again, maybe the Giants, somebody like that who could use a true number one on the outside. But if you watch Jacksonville last year, the experiment, just like it didn't work. Whether it was the scheme, whether it was how comfortable Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley were with each other, it didn't really work. And I think the Jaguars kind of knew that and they understood that. That's why as the season went on, before he got hurt, Christian Kirk really started to emerge back as Trevor Lawrence's number one. Evan Ingram started to produce even more as the season went on. I just think the experiment didn't work like the Jaguars thought it would. I think he's still talented. He can add a lot of value. He's not super old either. The experiment to me just didn't work. And I think the Jaguars know that. They want to move in a different direction. I don't hate it. I do think they paid a little much for Gabe Davis. Like, I think they could have gotten that talent elsewhere in free agency, maybe in the draft. But at the end of the day, it's not a bad number two option to have despite the financials.
Yeah, the Jags are going to be interesting to watch this year. They really are with how they perform and how disappointing it was last year. I mean, the Jaguars started? Didn't they start like 7-3 last year or 8-3, and then they just fell off a cliff?
All downhill.
Jay, I was looking at your Twitter today, Coach. You were getting some questions about about the Washington Commanders, not your Washington Commanders, the Washington Commanders. They made one move today. They signed a center, Tyler. I don't know how to say his last name. Biadasz, whatever the case is.
Biadasz.
The Commanders signed Zach Ertz today?
Mm-hmm.
They signed him a couple weeks ago.
Do they need to make any other moves? What is there anything on your radar as far as what should Commanders fans be looking forward to through?
I heard they're getting Austin Eckler too, right?
I heard they were looking at him. Yeah, that was their top priority from what I've understood.
They got the defensive end from Dallas as well, so they're inching up there. They need a lot of help on defense. They need a lot of help on the offensive line. They got Zach Ertz, which helps them a little bit at tight end, but they need more of a blocking presence at tight end, in my opinion. So yeah, they got a lot of work to do, and they obviously have to address the quarterback situation. I don't know if they're going to stick with Sam Howell or obviously draft Drake May or Jaden Daniels, one of the two, or JJ. Who knows what they're going to do, but quarterback has to be their number one priority. But in the meantime, you got to do what you can do right now, and that's address other positions. They got to get a pass rusher. I think they got Armstrong from Dallas. They got to address the offensive line, which they got a good solid center from Dallas, which is important. And yeah, so they're making moves in the right direction, but they have a long way to go. They got to get some corners. They got to get a linebacker. They got to get a safety. They got to get another guard or two. They got to get another tackle. So yeah, they got a long way to go.
If you're the Commanders GM today, who are you taking at quarterback in the NFL draft when it comes up?
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. The Panthers are trading Brian Burns to the Giants.
Wow.
Yep.
Brian Burns. That's a big time addition.
That is a huge addition. That's the only way this day could have been salvaged for Giants fans, I think.
So as a Giants fan, how do you feel about it then?
I mean, it's great. I think, I love the Azeez Ojulari. Love the Azeez Ojulari on the other side of Kayvon Thibodeau, but my gosh, was he injury prone. It was really, really bad. So getting another guy on the other side of Thibodeau is great. You let Thibodeau work some more one-on-ones, hopefully. But no, it's a good move. And I mean, if it takes to get rid of Saquon Barkley, Xavier McKinney to get a player of this talent at 26 years old, I love it. I think it's a good move.
Going to be interesting to see how the Giants perform with Danny Dimes, your guy this year. But Jay, back to you. If you're the Commanders GM today, and the draft is today, who are you drafting at quarterback?
I don't know. Who's left?
No?
Who's going number one? Caleb Williams going number one?
Caleb Williams is going number one.
Caleb Williams goes number one. I'd probably take I don't know. Right now, I'd probably say Jaden Daniels.
Well, he's going to be gone too. The Washington Commanders are going to get him.
That's what I just said.
Well,
Commanders
is gone, and then you got Daniels gone, and then you got
Commanders got the number 2 pick.
JJ.
Oh, I thought you said Giants.
No. Commanders.
Okay.
Yeah.
JJ, you love Jane Daniels, so you'd probably be pumped to see him play for the Commanders, huh?
I mean, I'm pumped to see him wherever he goes. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be special. I think he's not getting enough love, even though he's starting to shoot up people's draft boards. But because when he was coming into the draft, I don't even think people had him in the first round, really, hardly. And now he's moving up quite a bit, and now he's looking at like the number 2 overall pick. So I mean, that's exciting for him. So he's a special talent, man. He made a lot of plays at LSU. He has some help though in the wide receiver end, though. He has like 2 wide receivers are going to be projected in the top in the first round as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there.
Well, that depends, Grant, on the interview process and who they think can handle the offense the quickest. There's a lot of variables left. For me to just say based on a highlight film or a couple of the games that I've seen is almost impossible. There's a lot of work that goes into evaluating these guys, but Jaden has a little bit more of a skill set with his ability to run fast. Drake May can run as well. Drake has a little bit of accuracy issue. It looks like to me it's going to take some time. Drake will probably be more of a project, probably a little bit more of an upside. Jaden, if you want to start a guy right now and have some explosive plays early, Jaden's an exciting guy. He can let it rip down the field. Do worry about his ability to stay healthy. He's a thinly built guy, and he does take a lot of hits. That's what big concern I have with Jaden, but he's talented as hell.
He is very talented, JJ. I don't think I've seen anybody else out there pound their fist for Jaden as much as you have. Is he higher than Caleb Williams on your draft board? Would you go that far?
I just don't. I know Caleb Williams looks good. He looks the part. He throws the ball well. I'm not overly sold on Caleb Williams yet. I mean, I think like there's a lot of people that have him number 1. They were talking about him all last year beforehand going into the draft being number 1. I didn't see it, man. USC, where they finished at 6-6, not a winning record. I know their defense wasn't very good, but I mean,
yeah, they were bad last year.
I feel like you got to still put together some wins. You got to lead your team a little bit better than that. Jaden Daniels did all that, won the Heisman. That's tough to do, man. It's tough to do. So I don't know. I personally like Jaden Daniels more than Caleb Williams. I'll put it that way.
There you go. Interesting. There's a lot of people that think Caleb Williams is going to be a bust, and it's whether people say he's soft, people say this, people say that. Look, I think Caleb Williams myself is going to be a pretty damn good quarterback in the NFL, but what do I know? A couple more moves to recap before we get out of here. Coach Jay, I'm coming right back to you. DeAndre Swift is on his way to the Chicago Bears. 3 years, I believe it was 34, 36 million, somewhere around there for DeAndre Swift. Are you a fan of DeAndre Swift going into that Chicago Bears offense with, we don't know who the quarterback is, so it's pretty hard to tell, Coach, but just overall thoughts on Swift heading on his way to Chicago?
I'm not a big Swift fan. I think he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but as far as a number 1 bell cow type guy, I don't think he's built like that. I think he's more of a number 2 type guy. to get you out in space and some RPOs and maybe some screens and that stuff. But he's not a guy that can pound it between the tackles and get you the tough yards and Soldier Field late in the year. I mean, that was my issue with Philadelphia last fall. They had Gainwell and Swift. They didn't have anybody that could run between the tackles physically. Now they do with Saquon. It's a big difference. He's a talented guy, but I prefer to go a little bit bigger for my number one bell cow type back, have a number 2 or number 3 guy that come in on third down and do some different things. Like in Washington when we had a big back and then we had Chris Thompson coming in. That's just my preference. Not to say that he's a bad player or anything like that. I just would prefer to go a different route for my number 1 guy.
Another running back that was on the move, Max, was Tony Pollard. He's on his way to the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people, again, we're not talking about Tony Pollard in Tennessee in the same breath of air until the deal was announced today. But Tennessee's also got that pretty good young back. I'm forgetting his name.
Tajay Spears.
Tajay Spears. He's going to split carries with him.
Yeah.
But how much do you see Tony Pollard involved in that Titans offense with what will probably be Will Levis next year?
I mean, I personally like the move. The thing with, I watched Pollard play a lot last year, and I know we talked about this last week. I think the transition he had to make from going from Zeke's complimentary back to an every down back wasn't as smooth as the Cowboys expected and he probably expected. So I think going to a new backfield where him and Tajay Spears will split time. I'd be shocked if Pollard did not get more touches than Spears, but they will split time. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's going to help both of them be as efficient as possible, but I can't say they're the same player because they're not, but their playing styles are very similar, at least in my eyes. I've seen a lot of the work they can do in the receiving game. It's really good. It's the strength of their games. Between the tackles, again, you're not getting much with Spears. You're getting a little bit more with Pollard, but not a ton. I don't know. To me, it's good if they can make 2 running backs of the same style work, which, again, is very dependent on the scheme and the coordinator and all the pieces around them. But I do like the move. I like the idea of taking work off of Pollard's legs if you have a really good backup, and that's what the Titans do because Spears is a very good player.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to definitely be able to split carries out there in Tennessee and have fresh legs almost, all game long. We'll close with this. That really wraps up. I don't think I've missed any of the other big, crazy acquisitions that came through today. And as they continue to come through, hopefully we can get the guys back on and discuss them. We'll close with this because it's a topic now that Kirk Cousins is not going back to Minnesota. We talked about Sam Darnold last week, Max. It is rumored that Sam Darnold might go to Minnesota to be a bridge quarterback out there. The only 2 quarterbacks they have on their roster right now are Jaron Hall, and I forget the other one in Minnesota right now, but it's not looking good. I'm going to come to you, Max, and I'll go down the line to Coach Jay and JJ. If you had to give one guy out there that's going to be quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings next year under center, who are you going with? Max, I will start with you.
Whew, that's tough.
Is it a guy like Sam? Go ahead.
I could see if the Vikings truly want a bridge guy, I don't think Sam Darnold's a bad idea. I think they look somewhere in the draft. I think Michael Penix is a great option. I think that is a guy that probably will be there when they pick. I don't know if they want to take him in the first, but they don't take him in the first. Maybe they scoot back up in the second. I think he'd fit in really well. But the reality with the Vikings right now is you got to show Justin Jefferson something this year. You got to show him something because if you don't and you don't pay him, he is walking next year. His quarterback is gone. He's going to walk next year if you don't either show him the money or show him quarterback promise or both. But if you don't show him anything, I think he's out the door.
Coach Jay, I know you don't like these tough on-the-spot questions. Do you have a hypothetical answer for the Minnesota Vikings at quarterback for 2024, 2025?
No, I don't. Very difficult. I would try to trade for Sam Howell maybe, get a guy in there and then look to the draft. Sam Howell, obviously, he'll be a backup and disgruntled a little bit. He had a pretty good year, had some good games. That's one option. Sam Darnold, you guys mentioned, he's a big guy that can run a little bit, but I don't know. I was in a position like this at Cincinnati when I first got the job as a coordinator. We had Jordan Palmer and Dan Lefevre was our only 2 quarterbacks. We had to wait for the draft, and luckily we got Andy Dalton in the second round. So I imagine they're going to wait and do that and try to get a quarterback, whether it's Penix or JJ or whoever it might be. There are some guys out there that can compete and help you, but you got to have somebody in there that can take the first team reps and OTAs just in case this rookie's not ready to go. And I don't know who that is. Could be Darnold, could be Howell if you trade for him. Could be Daniel Jones, trade for him. Who knows? They got to do something.
Cameron says Jayden Daniels to JJ and Jordan Addison would be crazy. JJ, your guy Jayden Daniels, could the Vikings trade up? Do you have an answer at a hypothetical quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings next year? Jameis.
I mean, Jameis Winston, baby. Jameis Winston. He's known for force-feeding balls. I mean, you saw him with Mike Evans, a few years ago. I mean, he's going to throw the rock around. Veteran guys, and they come in there, bridge the gap for a year, probably not succeed. But, in Justin Jefferson's defense, he will get the ball. He'll get the targets. He will get the ball thrown to him by Jameis Winston. I think that's going to be the spot that he lands. And we're going to see famous Jameis Winston on our television screens for another 17 weeks of glorious football. 18 weeks.
Wow. I love it. That's a great spot for Jameis. Jack, what's up, Jack? Jack says they were talking about JJ McCarthy or Trey Lance. Trey Lance is another name that's I think is intriguing. I mean, he hasn't really had the chance to show anything yet, but I like it. I think that's my favorite answer all day from you, JJ. You're eating the dub there as I see, and we will see him in the purple and
who
yellow.
Who picks first, Minnesota or Denver?
Ooh.
I believe it's Denver.
Denver will take McCarthy if he's there, so he'll be gone. So sorry.
Do you think JJ McCarthy, coach, is going to be a good NFL quarterback? It seems like
he played a little bit hurt. They ran the ball a lot, and that's not his fault. You can never fault a quarterback because the offensive coordinator, head coach, want to run the ball 45 times a game. He did what he's supposed to do. He's very smart. He gets the team in the right run plays, a lot of run checks that they had, and when he was asked to throw, he delivered. So there's a lot of work left to be done on J.J. McCarthy, but a guy that comes in a pro-style offense, can get under center, do the play-action game, has good enough arm talent to drop the ball in different locations, accuracy, and can throw the ball on time. Yeah, I think he's worth the risk of taking the first round for sure. You got to reach for quarterbacks in the NFL. You got to take a shot, and you're going to fail a lot, but if you hit, you'll be coaching for a very long time.
No doubt. It seems like some of the best quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes was what? He wasn't a first-round pick. What round did Patrick Mahomes go?
He was a first round.
He was in the first round.
They traded up to get him.
Was he? Oh, I didn't think he was.
Dude.
Jeez.
He was in the first quarterback taken.
What kind of show we doing here?
All right, boys. Well, that is every name in the book. That's big move that is gone so far in free agency. So, Coach Jay and JJ, we know you guys are busy, but we do appreciate you popping on here and giving us some time. So, we appreciate you guys.
Hey, thanks for having us on, man. We appreciate it.
All right, boys. Again, let's before we go, I want to get March Madness. I don't know if we'll get to talk to you guys in time before March Madness gets here. We talked about Stetson. You guys are taking him, obviously, your boys, to win some games. But do you have a pick? JJ, we were talking back and forth. You said you gave me two teams that you thought hypothetically could go all the way this year. What were those two teams?
I said Baylor. I like Baylor a lot defensively. I just don't know if they're all there yet. I think Baylor's coached really well. They have a good offense. They can put up points. As long as they can play defense, I think that'll be a hard team to beat. They're a long shot, too. They'll probably get in as a 2-3, maybe 4. But I think they'll have a favorable matchup, first few matchups, and I think they could be a really hard team to beat. Stay in the Big 12, though. I also like Iowa State. They're long. They're big. Defensively, they're really good. Flip side of Baylor, I mean, they need to put the ball in the bucket. That's the only way they can win. They can stop teams from scoring 60-plus points per game with that defense that they have. But, they just got to be able to score. So those are my two picks right now. There's a couple long shots that I do like, too, but I'm sticking with those two for right now. I got to see the regions. I got to see the matchups, too. But those are two picks that I do like right now.
Coach Jay, you got a March Madness dark horse?
Dark horse? No, I like Houston. I like the way they play defense and get every loose ball. Every loose ball goes to Houston. I've never seen anything like it. I love this coach. I mean, this guy just gets after this guy's awesome. And I also like Kentucky. Kentucky's got some top 5 draft picks on their team that are pretty damn good. And obviously, Duke is going to be a problem.
Ugh.
Duke sucks, man. I can't
Duke
stand
sucks. The
Duke.
ACC
They got a good shooter.
I hate Duke, especially now after what was that guy's name was crying about court stormings. God, I can't stand him.
And Jay Billis.
Yeah, but he could shoot.
God. Is that the guy you were talking about? The guy that was crying about storming the court?
Yeah.
I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I hope he goes 0 for 10 in the first round of March Madness.
He ain't going 0 for 10. He can shoot.
All right, guys. We appreciate everybody taking the time to come on, and hopefully we can all talk soon again as these moves continue to progress. But Enjoy the golf. Coach Jay, I saw you working on your golf commentary. Hope that all continues to go well for you.
Thank you.
Continue to enjoy the golf course. JJ, stay busy. All right, boys. We'll catch you next time.
All right, see y'all.
See you later.